Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I wanna welcome everybody to the webinar today. My name's Christopher Garcia. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna go ahead and stop share for a second and then show you myself, so you know I actually exist in the real world and not just on the computer behind a screen. I'm the Small Business Advisor here at the Small Business Development Center at UNM Valencia campus. I've been the business advisor for about 5 years now. And some of my background is I used to do online sales on online marketplaces, flea markets, places where you sell without a store. And I want to pass on a little bit of the wisdom I learned and talk to you a little bit about regulation and marketing and some useful programs you could use to better market your product and sell your services. So let me go back to share my slides. Let's see. So here we go. So there's our nice little logo, America's Small Business Development Center. Let me move forward. And let me tell you a little bit about the SPDC before we get started. Actually, it's like 5 or 6 slides, so I'm going to go kind of in depth, so bear with me. I want you all to know that you're welcome to chat me questions at any time. We'll probably not open up the mics, but if you could chat those questions over, I will stop periodically when I see them and I'll answer them. And if you want to go deeper into something, just let me know and I'll try to do that. So we are Small Business Development Center, like I mentioned earlier. We get our funding in part from the Small Business Administration, and we are hosted here at UNM Valencia with our fancy new logo. Our mission is to build skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses, and we do that in 2 ways. We offer free one-on-one business counseling and low or no cost workshops. And at UNM Valencia, our workshops happen to be mostly free. We only charge for QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Online, and basic bookkeeping. But the rest of our workshops are free. I usually do this one twice a year. I like to do it by webinar because I think people who want to learn about selling without a store should have the basic computer knowledge to log on to a webinar before you get yourself into a mess on an online marketplace or with a program that's kind of expensive like Hootsuite or the like. So here our program was founded in 1989, and we're part of 1,000 accredited small business development centers across the United States. And our center happens to serve Valencia County, Socorro County, and we used to serve Southern Torrance County, and now it's hit or miss. And when you hear Valencia County, think Los Lunas, Belen, Bosque Farms, Peralta. When you hear Socorro County, think Socorro, Magdalena, Lamatar, where our lovely green chili comes from. And Southern Torrance County, you're going to think Tajique, Manzano, and Mountain Air, the lovely high desert up there. So here's our staff. We recently received a new director. He came from CNM in Albuquerque. His name is Vernon Mullinex. And I'm Christopher Garcia, as I mentioned earlier. Here's our contact information. Our services are free to everybody. We just can't help those who make most of their money from a product or a service that's sexual in nature, and people selling medical cannabis, recreational cannabis, and the like. So our office locations. I'm here at UNM Valencia campus. I call this my bird's nest because I'm on the 2nd floor. And if you saw my picture earlier, I have a photo of the Tomei Hill in the background. If you haven't heard about the Tomei Hill, it's worth the research. It's a pilgrimage like Chimayo, and I welcome everybody to come and visit, especially for Good Friday. We have 2 satellite campuses at our SPDC. One is at the Socorro Public Library, and the other is at the Belen Business Center. The Belen Business Center is kind of cool because it used to be an armory, and it's next to the senior center, so you get to visit with grandma and grandpa. So what we can do for people, we could provide sample business plans and outlines. We have these really cool financial projection spreadsheets that prepare a set of financial projections for up to 5 years. for either a startup, or we could put actuals in if you don't have the bookkeeping data that you need, naughty. And it makes easy work out of a tough situation. We offer business planning, support, and counseling, business plan research, and I'll show you a little bit of that research later on and what we have access to and what you actually have access to as UNM students. And I want to make sure you guys know what you have access to from the UNM library as UNM students, because it's very, very important, and it will help you a lot as in your academic career, in your business career, and in almost everything that you do. We have information regarding organizational structures and we provide assistance navigating the paperwork. I don't know how many of you online have tried to set up an LLC, a corporation, or apply for a business license. In the rural areas, it's a little bit of a task. In the city of Albuquerque, the city has done a great job in the past 5 years with their website, and they have a way you can apply for a business license online, a temporary business license online. If you go into the counties in New Mexico, it's a little bit more difficult to navigate. For example, in Socorro County, in unincorporated Socorro, you don't actually need a business license to operate a business, which kind of different. Information referrals to New Mexico Environment Department. That's if you're interested in food truck, maybe a pop-up shop that serves food, and we'll talk about that a little later. There's a lot of state regulations and local regulations, so I help navigate those. And we also work closely with the Chambers of Commerce. So if you ever needed information on the Chambers of Commerce in our service area, I'm happy to provide that. And then we help with business financing. Again, that's the financial projection spreadsheet. And then we used to have access to, I've never actually used them with another client, but we had access to Finagraph and MarkScore. And what Finagraph does is it uses your bookkeeping data from Xero, QuickBooks, or the like to give you an analysis of your ratios and compare them to RMA data, which is sort of what a managerial accountant would do, or a COO. And then we provide research from numerous databases that everybody who's a student at UNM has access to. And then we help with sales and marketing. This is kind of my wheelhouse. I love sales and marketing. I could help you with prepare a marketing plan. And if you are a small business owner who's either in a startup or has run a business for a while but never prepared a marketing plan, I really suggest you do. I would force you if I could, but that wouldn't be very nice. And I'm happy to help you with it. There's a great marketing database on UNM's UNM Libraries database set called Mintel Marketing Reports, and I'll show you those probably towards the end of the presentation. And those help people tremendously, and you're going to think they're really neat. And if you're a geek like me and you like to read marketing stuff, you'll get a kick out of them. We could help with advertising. I'm a Wix certified pro advisor if you needed help navigating a WYSIWYG website editor. I know how to do Facebook boost posts, create Facebook business page, same with Instagram and the like. You could be featured in a quarterly newsletter if you work with the SPDC. We choose a star client every year, which is somebody who's worked with us for at least 5 hours and has positive impacts because of our help. And that person represents us in front of the legislator for our day at the legislature, and you get a press release prepared about your business, and it goes in the local paper usually. And then assist with web marketing efforts, which I talked about. What we can't do is we can't do the paperwork for you, provide instant results, make decisions for you, or provide legal or tax advice. And we measure success when you become a client. And then if you have a milestone, we ask that you fill out this client economic impact report. And this is how we justify our funding, because I'm sure Cecilia could attest, when you run a program like this, you always have to justify your funding to people. And this is just one of the ways we do it. One of the ways we do it, and it's kept confidential. So the first thing I want to talk about when talking about the types of selling without a store businesses that Tamara E. Holmes talks about in her article, Selling Without a Store. You guys by now probably realized how original I was with the name of this workshop based on the article. So she talks about pop-up shops, flash sales, which think big lots when you think flash sales, big lots. A lot of people do this on eBay and Etsy where they buy big lots of unpopular merchandise and then sell it for a discount online or in person. Pop-up shops and food trucks. And people who sell without a store or want to sell without a store, often they don't think of the paperwork associated with starting a business, nor do they actually think of themselves as a legit business, which, you know, even though you don't have a storefront, you need to be just as legit as a storefront. So when you're starting a business, you need to consult somebody. You need to consult an SPDC advisor. You need to consult a mentor at the SDC at the rainforest. You need to consult a CPA and a lawyer. Your CPA and one of the business advisors in another state always says, know your ABCs, accountant, bookkeeper, and counselor, and they use that as lawyer. So having a business that doesn't have a storefront gives you, you have some legal liability associated with what you do because you're going on to different properties. Maybe you're going from flea market to flea market. You have a mobile unit like a food truck and you're going from place to place. And if you're selling on a marketplace or you're selling on your own website, you really need to consider your business name and whether your business name is available. And there are two standards for that. So if you're going to start your own website, you want to make sure your business name is available across social media. You want to make sure that there's no federal trademark on that name, that logo, or that catchphrase. And you want to make sure it's available in the state where you want to start a corporation, sole proprietorship, and make sure that nobody else potentially could use that name. Because if I spent a lot of time and effort choosing a name for my website, I want to make sure I could use that name across multiple channels and make sure that nobody else could use that name, especially if I'm selling nationally and not just in a local area. So let me show you how to do, you know, you have to consult an attorney to make sure it's all legal and legit, but let me show you some simple ways that you could search for a name, at least in New Mexico, to see if it's available. And remember, in New Mexico, we don't register doing business as names. So if you're a sole proprietor and you use a business name, there's no way to really keep that name unless you register, unless you reserve that name with the Secretary of State's office, and you could only reserve it for 125 days. Don't quote me on that number of days, but about 125 days at a time. Or you could create a business structure like an LLC or a corporation, which are an LLC is pretty low cost, and it will help you keep and register that business name, at least in the state where you operate. So let me share my screen. I'm going to share an internet window, and I'm going to show you the Secretary of State's website, and I'm going to show you how to do a name search. You share. I'm going to talk to you guys about Constant Contact later, and here's a little sneak peek. You could see my computer remembers the Secretary of State's website. I use it all the time. So let me go back to the homepage. So our lovely Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, she is awesome, and don't let anybody tell you any different. She ruined the website. She had a great website going, but she kind of ruined it this time. And on the Secretary of State's website, you could find information about incorporating, starting a business, starting an LLC, trademarking a business name. You could find all the documents you need to amend or renew a corporation or an LLC. And let me show you, they're going all online, so you could do this all online. And here's the portal where you would create an LLC or create a logon to create a corporation, LLC, trademark, yada, yada, yada. Under search public filings, you could search, but you could do a business search. And does anybody want to chat over maybe a name they want to look, they're interested in me looking up right now? If not, I'm going to make the two I'm looking at right now come up with a name and I'll search for it. Cecilia, do you want to throw a name out there?
I'll type it. Let's see. Oh, there's one, Roses for You.
Roses for You, that's a sweet one. We don't want to look up Los Lunas Chamber of Commerce. There we go, Roses for You. I don't do starts with, I always do contains. If you, I wouldn't do exact match if I were you, because the Secretary of State's office goes by things that are very similar. So the only real way you could know if your name's available through the Secretary of State's office is to call them and have them do a business search for you, which I highly recommend. But if you're wanting to scope it out, see if multiple names, multiple iterations are available, you're welcome to do this sort of search. So I always do contains. You have to certify you're not a robot. And see, like I told you earlier, I exist in the real world. So here we have no data found. So that means Roses for You, maybe Roses for You LLC, or IM Inc. might be available. No data found. And then I like to do, since it's Roses for You, I like to just do what business names contain roses. In New Mexico, at least. This will only tell you about New Mexico. Bread and Roses, that sounds good. And then you could just start to see other people using Rose in their business name, what kind of business structures they have. And you could also see if, I could even show you the details. Let's see Bread and Roses, because now I'm hungry for a toast. So that you could see that this company's been dissolved. It was dissolved in, who knows the date, we'll probably find it as we go along. And then you could see how other people register their businesses. So I can't tell you how many times I see paperwork that's done incorrectly. And when you create something like an LLC or corporation, you're creating a legal relationship between you and the business and the world. So that should be as legal as you can make it. And if you can't afford an attorney, you know, at least seek advice from a paralegal, or at least, at very, very least, look up how other businesses have done their paperwork so you have a good idea of what you need to do. So that's what I wanted to talk about that. So now let me go back to the slideshow. Okay. So considering a business name, and it's best practice if you have an LLC, don't use your last name or your first name in it. And that's about all I'm going to say about that. And then choose and register your legal structure. So that's really an attorney question, an accountant question. Oh, I'm not sharing. Let me resume share. I'm sorry. Let's see. There we go. You could all see my slideshow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So choose and register your legal structures. So depending on what your personal financial situation is, you may want to consult an attorney or an accountant. If you're married, if you're single, if you may be married, if you're going through a divorce, these are all things you need to consider when starting up a business. You should obtain an FEIN, which is a Federal Employer Identification Number, even if you're not going to have any employees. What the FEIN does is it acts as your social security number on things like W-2 forms, 1099 forms, and you need it to open a bank account, because we all know what happened to our banks in 2008. They were a little naughty and they got flooded with a lot of new regulations to make sure people aren't opening up false accounts, whatnot. And then you'll need a CRS number if you want to start a business in the state of New Mexico. What a CRS number is, it stands for the Combined Reporting System through the New Mexico Tax and Revenue Department. And what it is it's a number that you use to pay your gross receipts tax. Because in New Mexico, we're one of the only states that collects gross receipts tax, which is a tax on the total amount of revenue you make, whether it's a good or a service. So if you go to our neighbors to the east, Texas, they collect sales tax. So they only collect tax on goods and not services. You need to get a business license. If you're talking about food trucks, pop-up shops, and businesses where you're actually going to a different place, you need to consult the New Mexico Tax and Rev to see if you need to get a temporary business license in the place that you're going to. So for instance, you are a LLC in Albuquerque. You have an Albuquerque business license and you want to come to a food truck event in Los Lunas. You should really have a temporary business license in Los Lunas. Establish a bank account under your business name. This is very important. You should be establishing any legal accounts under your business name, and that will separate you a bit from the business. And then, especially for my people who sell without a store, check your insurance coverage. Food trucks, a lot of the time, they don't have commercial auto. A lot of times, people who sell in pop-up shops, they don't have liability. So if somebody gets hurt on the property, while you're operating your pop-up shop, you could potentially be liable for something. That's why I always suggest you seek legal advice, especially for these sorts of businesses. The next slide. Okay. The name game. So whenever you're choosing a name, I want to talk a little bit more about the name. You got to think, are you going to incorporate? How will my name look? So I like to give an example, therapist.com. That could look like therapist.com. So just be careful how your name looks as a URL, how it looks on Facebook, how it looks on Twitter, how it looks on Instagram, and make sure it's really the name you want to stick with. Make sure your domain name's available. If you want to have a website or you want to be web ready. And let me show you how to do that. Let me stop share. Let me share my. Let's go back to Secretary of State's office. And you have to check and see if your domain name's available for your potential business name. You really need to go to what we call a certified domain name registrar. And the one that comes to the top of my head immediately is GoDaddy.com. Don't get tricked. There's other places you could go to, Squarespace, Bluehost, and those are all domain registrars. But sometimes you go to a logo maker online, a WYSIWYG website developer online that's not a certified registrar. They try to sell you a domain name, and really what they do is they buy the domain name under their business name and lease it to you. So just be cognizant of those sort of things, and always go. Just if you ever need help, just Google legit domain name registrars. And let me go back to the chat. I want to see what this Roses for You. So maybe you want rosesforyou.com. Oh, it's taken. So here's a perfect example. You know, we wanted a business name, Roses for You, but the rosesforyou.com is not available. So you might want to reconsider that business name if you do want a website. Best practice is, if you're a for-profit business, to have a .com. Some website developers suggest that you buy the .com, the .org, the .net, the so on and so forth. But as a startup, you're pretty safe with just the .com. And you could see how expensive and if your business name is an acronym, oh my gosh, guys, you better just rethink that, because let me see, HCVC was one we were going to buy for the Hispano Chamber of Valencia County. An acronym domain names tend to be the most expensive because they're considered premium domains. And if you find it for sale, it's going to be $12,000, $13,000. Okay, so I beat that horse to death. Let me stop my share. Let me share my slides again. Is the name available on social media? We talked about that. And then register your business name. If you are a sole proprietor, you want to be a sole proprietor, you know, it's perfectly fine. People have been sole proprietors since the beginning of commerce. Seek legal advice on how to make sure your name's, how to keep your name. Because I would hate for the man who sells paletas on Broadway and Central to one day expand that business and find that he can't use that same name in Texas, Colorado, or Arizona. And then apply for trademark protection. There's two standards. There's the national or the state. The national is United States Patent and Trademark Office, United UPTO.gov, and the state's the Secretary of State's office. Let me go on. Now we're going to talk about business structures, and I'm going to show you some resources. But let's go to the next slide. There we go. So choosing a business structure has a lot to do with the liability you want to take on as a business owner. As a sole proprietor, you're not separated at all from your business. The business name is your name. The business identification number is your social security number. And then as you get further and further away from the business, the next step is you could do a limited partnership or a limited liability company. And what that does for you is it provides you with a corporate veil. If you haven't, I'm sure all of you have heard about the corporate veil. It's the legal protections between an individual owner and the business. So when you create something like a corporation, limited liability company, corporation, it's like you're having a baby. That business has the right to take up loans in its name. It has the right to open bank accounts in its own name. And that will protect you a little, as long as you keep that corporate veil solid. That means not associating your personal phone number, your personal email. Please don't use Gmails for your selling without a store type businesses. Don't be, I keep forgetting the name, Roses for You. Don't use your Roses for You and then your name at gmail.com like a lot of my small business owners do. It's all in protection. And let me show you a good resource to find out more about business structures. There's two that I'd like to show with you, and I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the search window. And one's SBA.gov. SBA.gov is a wealth of free knowledge for you guys. They have a learning center, and in that learning center are lessons on many, many things. And one of them happens to be legal requirements, and then there's another lesson on business structures. And, you know, if you haven't visited this website, if there's one thing one bit of knowledge I could pass on to you today, it's visit this website. And that again is SBA, like Small Business Administration.gov. Another place you could go is, of course, I have to give a shout out to my SPDC, because that is my organization, nmspdc.org. And under the tab Starting a Business, there is a great handout prepared by an attorney called How to Choose a Business Entity. And in this, this little handout, you'll find the pros and cons of each business entity and learn a little bit about the liability associated with each. And at the very end, you know, if you're stubborn and you still want to be a sole proprietor, it'll teach you how to sign things legitimately as a sole proprietor, so you don't get your personal, so you don't put personal liability on yourself. So I'm going to stop sharing. 1 second, and I'm going to share the slideshow. Okay. And here's the list of the different business structures, the more common ones. Again, sole proprietor, there's no separation legally from the owner. Kind of a risky one to get into, especially if you're selling secondhand goods online, antiques online. You know, there's some liability associated with that. So you're selling food, definitely liability associated with that. So let me talk a little bit about federal employer identification number and show you where to go to apply for your federal employer identification number. So this is the number you use to pay your payroll taxes. It's the number you're going to use instead of your social security number on W-2s and 1099s, and it's required at least in New Mexico to open up a bank account. And let me show you that website. New share. And I'm just like everybody else. I go to Google for everything I search for, and I always type in IRS EIN number. And then you're going to look for the .gov. So there's a lot of, this is a good time to bring this up. There's a lot of scammers out there who try to charge you to get your EIN number, to charge you to create an LLC, to charge you to get a CRS number. Let me tell you now, EIN number is always going to be free to apply. So is a CRS number. So I go to the irs.gov one, and then there's an EIN assistant or how to apply for an EIN. And then this will give you insights, and it's a questionnaire, so it's about a 12-page questionnaire. And the important things to know, especially for somebody who does not have a storefront or an office space that they're using. So it doesn't have a legal address for the business, as a legal physical address. You're going to be required to list a legal physical address on these things, in addition to a mailing address. So if you are selling antiques online, if you're selling antiques at a pop-up shop, if you're selling antiques at a flea market, and you're doing this to earn a living, you're doing this as a business, you need to have a business structure. You need to apply for an EIN, CRS, and you need to make sure that when you're applying for those things, that you have a legal address. And there's a gray area of a way you could get around that. You could actually get a P.O. box at a place like the UPS store, and they actually provide you with a physical address. That is a slippery little line you're crossing there when you do that. You could also go to the South Valley, you could also go to a business incubator, and sometimes they have virtual office spaces, and they give you a physical address. Cecilia, do you do that at the incubator there?
Yeah, we do. We have a virtual tenancy program, and as part of that program, you get a business address through that.
So now we know why that's so important, right? You really need a legal physical address, and you know, you try to get them a year and out, like you provide that service for maybe a year, and you want people to transition into a storefront or another location.
It just depends on the individual business need. It's up to them, but if you pay for the virtual tenancy program, you get the business address here at STC.
Okay. So that might be a slippery slope with the Secretary of State's office, like the physical address that comes with the P.O. box from the UPS store. Other alternatives are co-working spaces like Fat Pipe right across the street from you, or Free Range. I always get a kick out of Free Range because I always think it's a chicken restaurant when I pass it. And they could provide you with physical addresses. And then you want a legal mailing address for your business, because you're going to have to list a registered agent for the LLC, which is the person who will get all the paperwork for the business. And it could be you, it could be an accountant, it could be an attorney. So that's my spiel about EIN numbers. And next I'm going to talk about CRS. So let me bring out the slide, and we'll go over it right away. Oops, what? CRS ID. So you get your CRS number through the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department, and that's where you're going to pay gross receipts taxes. And gross receipts taxes get very complicated for people without storefronts, because gross receipts taxes are calculated based on the municipality that you're operating in. So if you're a business with, say you're a pop-up shop, you sell beauty products. I'm going to use a friend of mine, Cami. He makes and sells his own products like salves and bath scrubs and whatnot at the rail yards market. He also, he could attend any market across the United States. He could also sell online. And when you're doing that, you run into issues collecting the correct gross receipts tax amount and paying it to the New Mexico Tax and Revenue Department. If you need to talk to somebody about this, you would talk to an accountant, you would talk to an attorney. You could also call the New Mexico Department of Taxation and Revenue. They have people in compliance. You're going to want to talk to people in auditing and compliance, and they know everything there is to know about compliance for gross receipts tax. And let me tell you, you may be selling a product without a storefront. You may be at a flea market. You may be at an art show, an event in another town. But if you're not paying your gross receipts tax, you will get caught. You'll get in trouble. You may get audited. And let me tell you, going through a gross receipts tax audit is not fun. If you hire an accountant or an attorney to represent you, it could be very expensive. And if you don't file your gross receipts tax report, say I operate a pop-up shop, I only do it in the spring and summer. I don't do it in the fall and winter. But I have a business structure and I have a gross receipts tax ID number. You need to file the zeros in the months where you don't make any money. If you don't, you'll be assessed a $5 fine. And after about 10 times you don't file, you will probably get an audit, or at least a letter from the Mexico Taxation and Revenue saying what the heck's going on. So now let me show you the website you go to get that number, because that is the all-important number you need before you could even get a business license of any sort. And again, New Mexico Taxation, Google is the oracle of all, and it gives you everything you need. Always look for the .gov web address, because there are, scammers ready to scam small business owners and give them bad advice or take their money. So this is the website you go to apply. The online portal is TAP. Let me show you what TAP looks like when you actually apply. You could create an account on the TAP portal, which is tap.state.nm.us. And they have great how-to videos on here. The people, so the hard part of getting a hold of somebody at New Mexico Tax and Rev, but once you do, they are very helpful. So now let me go back to the slideshow. Let me go back to another slideshow. There we go. So let's talk about the different things that Tamara E. Holmes talks about in her article. And the first one I want to talk about is online marketplaces. And for all of you online today, I'm going to send Cecilia the follow-up email that I usually send my SPDC clients when I do this talk, and it will have Tamara E. Holmes' article in it. It's a little dated. It's from 2011, but as you get older, 2011 doesn't seem that far away. Let me talk about what online marketplaces are. So these are marketplaces like Amazon.com, eBay, Etsy, where you could sell your products through a third party. The benefits to it are they have low startup costs. So let's take, for example, eBay. Say I'm a legit business. I want to do this professionally. I have a business structure. I could go to eBay. I could create a store. It costs about $50 a month. I could do all this under the business name, and I have to pay lower commissions if I am a store. And they're assuming that you're listing 50 plus items a month. It's a great way to test markets. So say I have this, I'm an artist, I make these really cool refrigerator magnets, and I want to see if anybody's really interested in buying them before I, start selling at a flea market, start paying registration fees to go to something like the world's largest matanza in Belen and be a vendor. And some of the advantages are you have a global market at your fingertips if you want to ship to other places. When I would sell online, I would mostly sell books, and I sold this set of books, and I was selling it for about $10. And somebody bought it in a year, and I believe it was the Ukraine, and they paid about $40, $50 shipping on it. So, you know, if there is a product that you have, you don't think I didn't think anybody would really buy that set of books, at least not internationally. And it, you know, it ended up selling. And to do this, you really need a marketing strategy for selling on online marketplaces. A lot of the times people go to these online marketplaces and they think, you know, you just put your product on, boom, you're ready to sell. That's not always the case. For instance, with eBay and Etsy, you have to think about how you title the listing. They have services now where you could pay a little bit more to add different features. Like if you wanted to add more pictures of your product in eBay, you pay a little bit more. And Etsy, you could pay more to show up in at the top of the search, just like Google AdWords. You could cross-list across multiple online marketplaces. That means listing the same product on Etsy, on eBay, on this and that and the other. And there are great software programs to help you with that, like Shopify, Hootsuite, and they just make your life a little bit easier. When you're selling on online marketplaces, a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you're not a good photographer, consider hiring somebody to take pictures of your product, because you know that's a customer's first look at something you're trying to sell. And if it's an ugly picture, they're going to have an ugly reaction to it. And here at our SPDC, we actually have a professional backdrop, a light tent, and other photo equipment that might help somebody start an online store. When choosing an online marketplace, you got to think about the fees. So you got to remember you're using a third-party payment processing service to collect your money. So that's usually Stripe, PayPal, Intuit Payment, Google Wallet, so on and so forth. And all those payment services have fees associated with it. eBay and Etsy charge commissions. That's why, because they're taking on more liability. They are the business. You're just selling as a third-party vendor. And, you know, they do a lot of marketing for you on eBay, Etsy. Your products show up in different searches. Sometimes if a product's really in high demand, they'll suggest it to people in an email when they log on to eBay or Etsy. So there are different advantages to using a marketplace instead of creating your own e-commerce site. In the follow-up email, I actually have an article in there that lists the major e-commerce sites. Let me show you. Ten online marketplaces. So this will name the 10 biggest ones. And as an SPDC advisor, I can't give you one single recommendation. I have to give you 3. So that's why I like to include that. Oh, I'm still working. And then I also listed things like how to sell online with eBay, Etsy seller handbook, Amazon tutorials and trainings. And I think Amazon, Etsy, and eBay were probably the biggest and most well-known to people in the room today. There's newcomers like Wish and Letgo. I've never used those before, but they're pretty up and coming, and I know a lot of the younger generation might be familiar with those. So now let me share. Let me go back to the slides. Oh, and here's a slide of 10 popular online marketplaces. So now let's talk about pop-up shops. Pop-up shops are really interesting to me. I think they are a great way to test out a storefront idea before you actually sign a lease on a building. They're a great way to test a location. And when I say pop-up shops, I want you to think Spirit Halloween Store. Are you all familiar with Spirit Halloween Store?
Yes.
Yes? So we usually see them around this time of the year. They pop up in maybe vacant storefronts, right? Let's see, I'm getting a chat. Let me see who's chatting.
Aware.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one that knows about Spirit. So things to consider when choosing a pop-up shop, it's all about location. Is there a vacant storefront near you? Maybe there's an old, like historic place around you, an old home. For instance, in Los Tunas, there's a place called the Luna Mansion, and it's actually a restaurant. That would be a lovely place to have an antique show, I think, an old historic home. And seeing if that location is a residence, is it a residential address? Is it a commercial address? Is it a different kind of zoning? You probably want to aim for just those locations that are commercial locations. A lot of the times you could get discounts for maybe if you're leasing for only 2 months and it's a storefront that's been vacant for a long time. Oh, and I have a question. Can I have permission to record this? Sure. I believe, Cecilia, you're recording this now?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
recording it and it'll be posted on the nmrainforest.com website and on YouTube, so it'll be available in all the handouts and the slideshow as well.
Hopefully it will go viral and I'll be an online celebrity at least for 15 minutes.
And so that'll be up either this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Sounds good. So as I was saying, location, finding that perfect location. And I could show you in the research tools how to kind of get a gauge of where your perfect location is based on your market. Permitting is another big hassle. Say I wanted an example used in a lot of these workshops that you might take similar to mine is Cheetos wanted to revamp their brand. So Cheetos now, when I was growing up, there was 2 types of Cheetos. You had the cheese puffs and you had the Cheetos, the crunchy Cheetos. Now you have multiple different flavors and whatnot. So Cheetos used to put up pop-up shops in different high traffic locations, maybe shopping malls in the United States, high traffic storefronts in New York City and large cities. And they would go in and serve all their Cheeto products and bring in young people and give them coupons and whatnot. But there's permitting associated with that. If you're going to serve food in a pop-up shop, you're going to need to get with the New Mexico Environment Department. And the Environment Department is going to inspect to make sure you could serve food in that area. You're going to need a temporary business license. You're going to need an inspection from the fire inspector. Just to make sure that area is safe. You may want to consult an attorney. Maybe the space isn't ADA compliant. It could potentially cause problems for you. You need to have insurance, at least general liability insurance for your business, because if anybody gets hurt while you're in that storefront, there could be legal repercussions for you. When you think of pop-up shops, think short period of time. Maybe you want to rent a vacant storefront in the city of Belen during a very popular event. Maybe it's the Becker Street Festival, maybe it's the Scarecrow Festival, maybe it's the world's largest matanza, and you want to have a pop-up shop where you sell desserts, or maybe you just want to do antiques for 2 days. You want to sell antiques in a storefront for a weekend. You see this a lot with people who do estate sales professionally. Believe it or not, a lot of that junk that you see at estate sales doesn't actually come from that beautiful house that's for sale and on the market. Sometimes the people who do estate sales professionally have a bunch of inventory. They rent a house or a commercial storefront, and that's where they will have their sale. So before I move on, is there any questions about pop-up shops? Let's see, I have a chat. Let's make sure. Okay, we're gonna move on. So now I want to talk about food trucks. I'm sure, you know, if anybody is interested in a food truck, you know, send me over a chat that says yes, because I'd like to know. I usually have at least 1 or 2 people in these webinars who want to start a food truck, because it's been in the media for the past few years. It's kind of a hot topic. I see somebody wants to do a food truck. Let's see.
That's Tim. He's here with me at the rainforest.
Oh, cool. Tim, you don't know what you're getting into. No, I'm just kidding with you. Food trucks. Food trucks and food carts could be very profitable because they have really low overhead for the restaurateur or for the cook. This is a great way to test your idea if you are a cook. Some people who come into my office, they've never shared their cooking with somebody outside of their family, or they've only shared it with friends, and their cooking may not be for everybody. So it's a way to test the idea out. Permitting is a headache, especially in the city of Albuquerque. The city of Albuquerque has their own guide for food trucks. I included in the follow-up email to this workshop. If you could pass the regulations required by the city of Albuquerque, you could have a food truck almost anywhere in the state. Things to know about food trucks is the permitting is going to vary from municipality to municipality, because it is really the city or the village or the town that creates the regulations associated with food trucks. For example, you know, maybe in a place like Santa Fe, I think I heard this in the news, they were getting a little bit more lax with their food truck zoning requirements. Usually you have to park on a commercial space. You should consider your insurance requirements. If you're wanting a loan for this food truck, alternative lenders for startups, the Loan Fund and DreamSpring used to be Acción New Mexico. They are not going to loan for a food trailer. If you have your own truck and you want to pull a food trailer, they're not going to give a loan for that. You have to have a full-fledged food truck, and that could hamper, you know, some people's plans. But startup costs are pretty low compared to a restaurant. And I've seen food trucks and food carts be very, very successful. The biggest hurdles are going to be permitting, of course. Food carts, as long as you have a 3-sink, I think New Mexico Environment Department are going to be okay with it. But getting a permit to sell your product on the street, that's going to be the difficult part. You're going to have to talk to the municipal office in your area. Remember, in Albuquerque, you have 2 jurisdictions. You have City of Albuquerque, and then if you're maybe on Metzger Road and South Valley, you may have to deal with the county. Here in Las Lunas, you're going to have different requirements than you will in Valencia County, in Socorro, so on and so forth. Do I have any questions about food trucks while I have it up?
No.
No? Okay. Let's move on. So let's talk a little bit about flea markets. So it's a great way to test an idea before you actually go into business. If you're selling at flea markets and you're going to do this more than once, probably get your business license just to protect yourself. And consult, you know, a corporation. Consult an attorney about, you know, incorporating. Usually flea markets require you to get a temporary business license. And most good flea market operators will either charge you a fee and get that temporary business license for you, or require you to have it before you could sell your stuff. Flea markets, they're usually temporary. It's a great way to test a location. And flea markets are all about location, location, location. So when you're thinking of a flea market space, if you're in Albuquerque, you think of the one at the State Fair. It's usually on a big commercial piece of property. Here in Los Lunas, Belen, we usually have owners of flea market areas that are just big empty lots of commercial property. A lot of the times, people who own commercial lots will try to do something like this to earn passive income until they could sell the lot. it also brings people onto that commercial lot to see if they actually want to buy it and start a business there. For flea markets, selling secondhand merchandise comes with a little bit of liability, and I think I have the link to see if something has been recalled. So if a few years ago in the news, a lot of toys were recalled for children because they had a lot of lead in it. If you have one of those toys, you know, no matter how vintage it is, it could cause you some liability if a child gets hurt because you sold them that secondhand product when you shouldn't have. Let's move on. I think flea markets recovered. So now let's talk about marketing. So advertising versus marketing. Advertising is really the activities that you do to promote the venture, and marketing is really the strategy. And there are different kinds of advertising. Print, you could take out an ad in a newspaper. Here in small towns, it's people typically take out little advertising spots in church bulletins. Social media is a great low-cost, no-cost way to market your pop-up shop. It's a great way to market a pop-up shop, an event, the location of your food truck on a certain day. If you're going to have your food truck at a certain event, you could do some cross-promotion there. Something you're going to need to consider if you want to start your own e-commerce website or your own website in general is search engine optimization. So people make their bread and butter talking about search engine optimization, and really the best advice I could give you is create a marketing plan with somebody like an SPDC advisor and seek out keywords. The best advice I could give you is seek out keywords that you want to use that are associated with your business and that are popular. And a good way to do this is to create a Google My Business profile. Google offers these profiles to business owners. As somebody without a storefront, you're not going to get the full one, but they'll offer you a free website version. And they give you the analytics, like what keywords are people using on Google to find you. And you would be surprised. You'd be surprised with what people come up with and still find you. But this isn't a lecture on search engine optimization. I think, you know, a dummy's guide to search engine optimization, you know, pick your keywords carefully. If you're selling on online marketplaces, cross-listing your items across multiple marketplaces is a great way to build search engine optimization for yourself, especially if you have your e-commerce site as well. Blogging helps with search engine optimization and using those keywords in blogs. Blogging also establishes your knowledge in a subject area. So if I had a food truck, I might want to blog about the kind of food I sell. If I sold antiques, I might want to blog about how to polish brass, how to clean silverware, so on and so forth. And then having a website, choosing your domain name carefully. There's a lot of WYSIWYG website creators, Wix, Weebly, WordPress. I'm sure you've heard about those. They all have W's. I find that a little funny. Squarespace, Bluehost, and what WYSIWYG stands for is what you see is what you get. So these editors let you edit in real time, kind of like you're editing a Word document or a Publisher document. You could also pay somebody to create a website for you. E-commerce sites are expensive. They're going to be more expensive than your normal website. So keep that in mind. Choosing the correct domain name might be expensive for you as well. And doing your search engine optimization might be a little pricey if you want all the bells and whistles, or if you're selling a high competition product. YouTube's another great way. You know, video blogging is a great way to promote your business. Everybody these days seems to want to be an influencer. And it's a great way to reach a market that you wouldn't normally reach. And it's a pretty inexpensive way to do so. So let's talk about market research, because this is the part of the webinar that I've been dying to get to because I love research. I'm a research geek. In fact, the SPD is sponsoring a data users conference with UNM's BEBR, which is the Bureau of Business and Economic Research. If you haven't visited the BEBR website or talked to Susan Reagan, who's the director there at BEBR, she is a wealth of knowledge. If there's one more thing, one more bit of knowledge I could pass on to you, is if you have a question like, what is the median household income of Los Lunas, and you don't know how to find that information, call Susan. Call the Bureau of Business and Economic Research. They're there to support commerce across all channels, and they are very helpful when it comes to business research. The first one I want to talk about is Mintel marketing reports, and I'm going to go into a little bit of business planning here, a little bit into market planning, but this will help you tremendously when doing one of these ventures, like creating an e-commerce website or starting a pop-up shop or food truck. So let me show you what databases are available to you. I'm putting on my librarian hat now. So UNM Library's website is library.unm.edu. As you can see, I go there often. And then on their homepage, they have databases. I go to just the databases for business management. They also have great ones for marketing if you go further down.
Chris, I don't think the screen is being shared.
Okay, let's see. How about now? Do you see University Library's homepage? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you get to University Library's homepage, you go to databases, and you could search by subject, and I would go to business if I were you. There's a marketing one too, but it's basically has everything that business does. Oh, it seems like they got rid of marketing. And here is the knowledge base for everybody in business. These are great free websites that you have, or free database tools you have access to. The best bets are actually your best bets, believe it or not. Believe your librarian. So whenever somebody wants to start a business, I pull an IBIS World report for them. And you guys have access to this, so pull your own IBIS World reports. They're pretty cool. Before you start with IBIS World, you have to know something about North American Industry Classification System. Every industry in the United States has a code associated with it. It's called a NAICS code, or North American Industry Classification Code. And that's the fastest way to find the industry you're looking for. If you need help with that, I'm not going to, that's a whole nother webinar in itself, and it's how to find NAICS code. Give me a call at the SPDC. Give Susan Reagan a call at BEBR. They'd be happy to help. So, and you could also use keywords, but for more specific industries, NAICS codes are much better. So for this instance, let's do food truck, because pop-up shop's just not going to be in there. So you as UNM students have access to the full report. As an SPDC advisor, I only provide people with the iExpert report, and we could see what the industry's doing. So I'm wanting to start a food truck. The annual growth last 5 years was tremendous. Wow. The growth this 5 years is going to be a lot less. So that's, half of 1% of new businesses will pop up. That doesn't bode well for me. Here we could see revenue growth versus employment. So there was a lot of revenue growth right here. I think that there was a big trend right here for food trucks. I think our president helped spur that trend when he made that comment about taco trucks on every corner. And then as we see, consumer spending is going up, which is one of the key external drivers. So now I'm thinking about an area I might want to open up a food truck in. The first thing I want to look at is the drivers. I see it's associated with consumer spending, the Consumer Confidence Index, which is an index that gauges how comfortable consumers are with spending rather than saving. Healthy eating index. I'm going to take a guess that when that healthy eating index goes down, the people take much more advantage of food trucks. Urban population. Starting one of these in Tomei, New Mexico, or Tajique in Torrance County may not be the best idea. I'm sure as urban populations rise, the people take more advantage of food trucks. And agricultural price index. So this is going to be the basics like pork bellies, coffee beans, and whatnot people sell in the stock market. And as the prices go up, you're going to pay more as a food truck proprietor. I could also see here product and service segmentations. So these are the most popular types of food trucks across the nation. So as you could see here, American food is the biggest, followed by Asian, desserts. Oh, I'm getting hungry. I shouldn't have picked this report. Central and South American food, other mixed ethnicity, and Mediterranean Greek. It's good to know. If I wanted to start a food truck, the most likelihood of success would be if I sold hamburgers, American food.
Yeah. Next would be Asian.
And then the life cycle stage, it's in the growth life cycle stage. Cecilia, everybody who attends these, are they Anderson School students?
I'm not sure. It varies. Some are students, some are community members.
Okay.
It just depends.
So this, I learned about this in strategic management when I was at the Robert O. Anderson School of Business. And knowing what life cycle stage your business is in is very important to know whether you need to start up, if you need to continue, or you need to sell. And whenever I see something in the growth life cycle stage, this is a great time to enter the market. So FYI on that one. Revenue volatility is medium. What that tells me is that you're not going to have this, you're not going to make the same amount of money every month or every week or every day. Capital intensity is low. You don't need that much startup funds. Industry assistance is low. Concentration is low. These food trucks aren't really grouped together like you see fast food restaurants. You'll see a McDonald's next to a Burger King, next to a Pizza Hut, next to a Taco Bell. Regulation levels medium. You still have to follow health code, New Mexico Environment Department. Technology changes medium. There's a lot of changes in payment systems and customer loyalty programs and advertising programs. Barriers to entry are low. Industry globalization low, and competition is high. And then this tells you your major markets. So most of the consumers who patronize food trucks are between the ages of 25 and 44. So I might want to go into a place that had a large younger population. That may not be Belen, New Mexico. Consumers age 25, followed by consumers 55 and older. So I'm going to show you how to find, maybe your best location based on this IBIS World Report. And here's a cost structure. So if we were going to put together a set of financial projections, you need a loan for this food truck. We want to make sure that you're not too you're falling into these guidelines on the financial projections. And they're guidelines. I could also pull RMA data, which is the Risk Management Association, and that's what insurance companies and major lenders will use. And then this gives you a SWOT analysis, threats, opportunities, and call prep questions, which are kind of cool. These are the questions that you may be asked about your business, say, by your professor when you're doing a presentation. So that's what an IBIS World Report is. Everybody who's a UNM student has access to this. Everybody who's not, become an SPDC client. Hint, hint, and then you'll have access to it. So now that we know what really drives food trucks, let me show you what else you could do. So the census put together a great resource. It's called Census Business Builder. If you're in Albuquerque, they have a regional edition, which is even better than the Census Business Builder, small business edition that I normally use. So if I'm in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or Las Cruces or Farmington, I'd want a place with more than 2 zip codes. I'd probably get more research out of the regional analyst edition. If I was somebody in Los Lunas, Belen, Valencia County, Clovis, I would probably get more information from the small business edition. For the sake of this, let's use the small business edition. So you enter, see, here we go with the NAICS codes again. You enter the NAICS code of the industry you're in. There's some common NAICS codes here. Food service, we happen to have food trucks in the quick NAICS codes. We wanted to look at Albuquerque. This database is very touchy because it's nationwide. Everybody and their mother's using it between 11 o'clock our time to about 2 o'clock. There's a map feature on it. I don't like to go to the map feature when I'm in Los Lunas or Belen or Valencia County. I go straight to the report. If I was in Albuquerque, I might benefit from the map, but I'm gonna show you the report just so you could see what's available to you for free from the census. So you're gonna learn about my customers, businesses like yours, and consumer spending. Consumer spending is my favorite part of this report. So you could see how many people are in Albuquerque, about 500,000. Here we could see, based on that IBIS World report that we pulled, our market segments were consumers aged 25 to 44, and our Census Business Builder report, open to everybody, free to everybody. Just Google Census Business Builder report. It's the census that puts this together, so the .gov address. We could start to see how many people are in the age bracket. We could see how many people, separated by race, and this comes in handy for certain types of businesses. You could see median household income, which is kind of low. I expected more from you, Albuquerque. High school degree or higher educational attainment's a big one for certain industries. Veterans, 9% veterans, well, go Albuquerque. And Spanish speaking, so, this is kind of a cool one. So maybe if I wanted to start a food truck that was a taco truck, like our president says, it might be a good idea to find a big Spanish-speaking population. You could see owner-occupied housing units. That's better for my plumbers and my tradesmen. Better information for you guys. Home ownership rate and whatnot. Median rent, $833. Gosh, Albuquerque has gotten expensive since I lived there. And then you could see how many establishments there are, like yours. There happens to be 5 that are coming up in this search. Total employment, the total annual payroll of employers. So what, $73,000 with a payroll? That's probably 1 business owner and maybe 2 part-time employees. Average employment per employer, 2. Average payroll per employer, 8,111. And population per employer. This one's a great one. So if you were trying to serve a population in Albuquerque, there are 109 people for every 1 food truck. That's kind of crazy. You're not going to find that with quick service or fast food restaurants for sure. You could see how much revenue is made from food trucks in Albuquerque. And then no data available. So for a lot of places in New Mexico, there's not enough data for a lot of things. Building permits, nobody builds a food truck, they usually buy one. And here's my favorite part, the consumer spending. So if I was gonna put a food truck together, and I'm using food truck because this industry has the most data available to me. The rest, pop-up shops, we'd have to go into specifically what you sell. It might be a little harder to find data. So here's consumer expenditures per household on dining out. This would be this is a way I could figure out my total dollar market value. So maybe I wanted to just cater to the breakfast crowd. They seem to be a more mellow crowd. Let me get my calculator. I'm going to use the calculator on the screen because I can't find my actual calculator, which is a problem I think many people have. Let me move this around. So let's see. So the average household, this is household per year. The average household per year in Albuquerque, you know what? We actually spend more on breakfast than you guys in Albuquerque in my area. Spends $308.23. So now we just need to find the number of households in Albuquerque, and we could find that if we go up here to the housing characteristics. So you could get the number of households by adding together the number of owner-occupied housing units and the number of renter-occupied housing units. So there's about 221,000 households in Albuquerque, and then we multiply by that. We multiply that times the expenditure on breakfast away from the home, which is about $308. And we have a total market of $68 million is what people are spending per household per year on food away from the home in Albuquerque. So I think, you know, there's probably room in that market for a food truck. That not every consumer expenditure is going to be in this report, but a lot of the basic ones are. Well, you spend double in Albuquerque on dating services than we do in Valencia County. So that's Census Business Builder. Once you have an IBIS World report, you could use Census Business Builder. You get a little bit more out of the Census Business Builder. A lot of the times what I do with my clients from Albuquerque is I Google Census Business Builder again. And then I go to the .gov one, and I go to the Regional Analyst edition, because in the Regional Analyst you could choose different things like zip codes, census districts, blocks, whatnot. And Cecilia, am I doing good on time?
Yeah, you're fine. We have till noon.
Oh, okay, so I'm doing good. Okay. So maybe I want to do Albuquerque. I could see these. I could choose different areas in here. I could change my setting. Let's see, zip code, and it will bring me up a map of all those different zip codes in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the red line mean that's all the incorporated areas of Albuquerque, of course. And then I could change this. I don't like, you know, I'm not a economist, so I don't really want to know total population. I probably want to know consumer spending. And I could choose specifics: consumer spending on alcoholic beverages, dining out away from the home. So let's select that variable. And then on this map, I could edit the region, or I could zoom in and select different zip codes. And then this little key on the right side of the map will color code them. So it looks like if I wanted to start a food truck, I would want to start one in either the blue or the yellow areas. Blue is probably the biggest one, and as you zoom in further, you could see more data about it. But it looks like the 87111 zip code, which looks like Ranchos de Albuquerque, would probably be your best bet. Academy, higher income area for sure. 87122, another high income area. I believe that's what we call, oh, I forget what they call it, that area. But that's just a little bit of insights into how to choose a location using Census Business Builder. A lot of people go downtown. As you could see, downtown Albuquerque doesn't really have that. People don't spend that much downtown on things like food away from the home. And I edited the region by accident. And that's where we're going. We're going crazy here. Maybe I wanted to draw a circle. I could also draw a circle. Maybe I wanted to serve everybody in a mile of that road. I could create a report on that. Yada, yada, yada. I think I beat that one to death already. Let me go to my slideshow and see what else I'm talking about. Stop share. New share. I lost my little Zoom thing. Okay, here we are. Oh, let me show you Mintel marketing reports. You will love the Mintel marketing reports. And then I will show you First Research. I showed you Census, and then I will show you Reference USA. So let me do a new share. So here's Ibis World again. We are going to go to Mintel Market Research Reports, and you can't get better than these Mintel Market Research. Cecilia, did you know about these?
Yeah, I've used them a few times.
Do you guys talk about them at the STC or?
We have access through UNM to the library database as well, so we use it sometime for market research.
Cool. They're really cool, aren't they? One of my favorites is marketing to baby boomers. So a lot of the products purchased in the United States are purchased by people 55 and older, believe it or not. 55 and older, people 55 and older are also a major market for online sales. Can you believe it? They beat out the younger generations. And these reports will give you more insight. See, I'm a millennial. I grew up around baby boomers. I may not have enough insights to market to them effectively. And this will give you a lot of information about the market, what you need to know, baby boomers by the numbers. My favorite part is the infographic overview. If there's anything you look at when you search for this, look at the infographic overview. And I might have to do a new share to open this. So tell me if you actually are seeing the infographic overview, would you, Cecilia?
Yeah, I'll let you know.
If it opens, it doesn't seem like it wants to open today. Oh, and then you could look at the analyst insight to the right while we're waiting for that to open. Aging boomers leave legacy of luxury ranches. That was not the baby boomers I'm related to.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, cool. So let's look at what baby boomers are all about real fast so you could get a taste of the information in these reports. So the percent of baby boomers who agree with these statements. I generally have enough time for everything I want to do. 71% of baby boomers agree with that. Wow. I feel good about my future. 70% feel great about their future. Well, I have a better life than my parents had at my age. It's going down. Investments can make or break retirement plans. 47% of boomers work full-time. Wow. Half of all working boomers plan to keep working. Traditional values more likely to resonate with boomers. So if I was going to create a marketing campaign, I might want to use traditional values in that marketing campaign. I might want to, knowing that 47% of boomers still work full-time, I might want to cater my services or products for those boomers who are working. You know, food truck might be a good idea. And these boomers are pretty optimistic, which means that, you know, pretty optimistic sales strategies might work. They're a valuable but often overlooked market. So that's another little gem I wanted to give you guys today. The boomers are a great market. So that's Mintel marketing reports. They also have reports on things like pest control, full service restaurants, vitamin and minerals, shopping malls. It runs the gambit. It lets you search by different countries. Most of the time when you're searching for these, they pop up with a little flag on to the right here, and it will tell you whether it's a report from the UK, the US, Australia. I find the reports from the UK and Australia are pretty similar to the reports from the United States. So if you can't find one in the US, look for the Australian ones. So that's Mintel Marketing. I think we're good there. IBIS World, we're good. I'll leave it open though. Let me show you Reference USA, which is the database I use the most. So I'm an online, or I'm a pop-up shop or a food truck, and I want to market to people in a certain zip code. Maybe I want to send them out a menu or a postcard that says, I'm going to be here on this date. I know you love Greek and Mediterranean food. Come and try it from our food truck. Or I'm selling antiques. I know you have an interest in antiques. Come and join us and get 10% off. And for boomers, I think this type of marketing is effective. I think it's pretty effective for everybody who checks the mail often, maybe not millennials or the younger generation. So in the consumer lifestyles database, you could find people, addresses for people, and you're free to mail them. Just don't call them and don't email them. That's against the law. And you could find people, say, in Albuquerque, one per household, who have an interest in for a food truck, maybe gourmet food and wine might work. Shop purchase behavior, maybe, let's see if anything there. Maybe bargain seeker. You could mess around with those lifestyle characteristics. So now let's update and see how many people we find. I also like to either go by estimated home value. So estimated home value is going to be for my tradesmen, my painters, my plumbers, and estimated home income is going to be for everybody else, my online salespeople, my food trucks, yada, yada, yada. And usually this IBIS World Report will tell you first quintile of income, second quintile of income. But you could probably take a guess that most people who shop at food trucks are probably going to be middle income. I'm going to say 40 plus till about 100,000. That's just a guess I'm making. That's not based on anything because it didn't say it in the report. Normally, if you're an online salesperson, you're selling jewelry, you're selling things marketed to mainly women, I would do 100,000 plus. And that is usually what the IBIS World Report suggests. So now we have 14,000 people who live in Albuquerque, are in that income level, and have an interest in gourmet food and wine. And as you could see here, you could get names and addresses. You could also get phone numbers and email addresses, but you should pay for those if you're going to email these people. If I was a pop-up shop or an online store and I'm just starting off, I wanted a relatively cheap way to market to customers, I could use something like Constant Contact. Are you seeing Constant Contact saying, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. So what Constant Contact is have you all heard of MailChimp?
Yes.
It's basically a more powerful paid version of MailChimp. It lets you create a list and email things to that list. You could buy these lists from places like IBIS World. I know Vistaprint sells them. There are a lot of places that sell these lists with lifestyle characteristics, age, whatnot. On Reference USA, you could buy 5,000 names for $1,000. That's pretty low. That's pretty low cost advertising, believe it or not. I could upload the list of email addresses to my listserv, my Constant Contact, my MailChimp, yada, yada, yada. I have permission to email these people because I purchased the list, Or I created this list by having a sign-in sheet at my pop-up shop by offering a free drink at my food truck if you sign up for our email list. And then I could email people promotions, I could email them updates, I could email them follow-up emails to my Selling Without a Store webinar. And it's just a great polished way to do something like that, very professional. Let's see, I got a question. Let's see what it says. How do they determine people's interest on reference USA? That is a hard one. I'm going to guess they determine that by how you purchase on the internet. That's just a guess. I'm not sure how the statisticians behind Reference USA figure that out. I'm sure they receive statistics from social media and whatnot. I'm sure Facebook sold all our data to them a long time ago. And I'm sure they get their information from the census as well. You saw everything we had access to when we did the Census Business Builder. So it wouldn't be hard to connect the dots there for them. Let's see, I got another chat. You know what, adding to that question, I actually come up as senior-oriented products. So I must be purchasing senior-oriented products somewhere, and Reference USA knows about it. So let's see. Okay, thank you. Oh, no problem. Thanks for the question, Hannah. And then if I'm a business-to-business type business, so this is going to be maybe I create, I have Grandma's recipe for this great Alfredo sauce, and I don't want to market it straight to consumers because there's so many choices out there and it's a little higher cost. Maybe I only want to market this pesto sauce that I jar myself at some place like the Mixing Bowl in Albuquerque or the Commercial Kitchen in Socorro, and I want to market it to restaurants. I could use the US Business Search. I could find restaurants. Maybe I only want to find Italian restaurants. And I could find them in a similar way to that. And again, here you're using SIC and NAICS codes. I didn't talk about SIC yet, but what SIC stands for is Standard Industry Classification Codes. Those are put together by OSHA. I have no idea why OSHA is in the Standard Industry Classification business, but those SIC codes tend to be a little bit more precise than the NAICS codes. You could also search by keyword in here. So maybe I wanted to find you could start to find your target markets in here. So I'm making I'm canning my grandma's famous pesto or I can't even remember what I said the first time, Alfredo sauce. And I want to market this to probably people who sell Italian food products and restaurants. So people who produce Italian food products and Italian restaurants. And I want to do that I don't want to go into another state because then I'll have to register my LLC as a foreign LLC in that state or a foreign corporation. So I want to stay in New Mexico. So I'm interested to see so now we pulled, people who manufacture Italian food products, maybe they sell them. I might go into grocery stores, maybe specialty markets, and this is a way I could find a target market for my area. I could also find my competition this way. If I am a food trucks will be considered quick service restaurants in this database, but I could find all those quick service restaurants, a radius from where I want to locate, in a zip code, in a city, state, metro area. And these are all aspects of a business plan or a marketing plan. Let's see. I think, okay, I showed you Reference USA, IBIS World, Site Stats, Social Explorer. Social Explorer is kind of cool. It's a lot like Census Business Builder, but for the life of me, it's a hard database to use. So I don't really know how to use it. Have you ever used that one, Cecilia?
No, I haven't.
No, I don't recommend it. Another one I like to use is First Research. So a lot of people ask me very specific questions on what I do, like I want to open up a nursing home, but I'm not sure about the legal requirements in New Mexico. I'm not either. That's an attorney question. But one of the ways I could get around that is by maybe going to a professional association. So let's see, who has a strong, restaurants have strong professional associations. And I get this information from First Research. And First Research is kind of like IBIS World. It has a lot of the same information, but they have a cool little websites and acronyms part of this. And this will give you industry websites. And I love these industry websites. In fact, Quick Service Restaurant Magazine is a magazine that we get here at the SPDC. And these professional associations often give you information about industry regulations. They give you information about the most up-to-date best practices. And of course, they want you to join. But these associations that pop up in this search, they're really good starting points. Maybe they're starting points for finding out what my legal requirements are, finding out if I could open a nursing home out of a house I inherited. I inherited my great aunt's spooky mansion and I want to turn it into a rest home. I could see if I could do that. Let's see if there's any other databases I want to cover. Bureau of Labor Statistics is a cool one. Sometimes that's over people's heads if you're not Susan Reagan from Bieber. So I like to stick with the Census Business Builder stuff. I think it gives you about everything you need. But if you want more in-depth analysis, you could go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The little lock next to it means it's open to everybody. So you don't have to be a UNM student or employee to have access to that. And American Fact Finder is another one. That's open to everybody. They're getting rid of American Fact Finder. As you see, that's not even taking us there. And what American Fact Finder does is it's a census database, and they could give you even more information about a certain area. So let's do Albuquerque. And some of the things that are interesting in here, in one of these reports, let's see, I believe it's in the one with working. This is industry, government housing, it might be under housing. You could get a little bit more in depth than what that Census Business Builder report gives. So if my target market was in an income level between 35 and 75,000, I could see exactly how many people meet that, or how many households meet that criteria in New Mexico. There's also a cool one, and this data is going to be a few years behind. Every census, every 4 years, remember. And there's a really cool one in here. I'm not sure where it's at. It might be in population. But they give you information on what the average commute is for somebody. If people are taking the bus, if people are taking taxis. That was a neat one in there. If you wanted to be an Uber driver, which is also selling without a store, by the way. And we have about 20 minutes left. The only other thing I might find helpful for you is Canva. Have any of you heard of Canva?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Canva's great. Another competitor for it might be Ripple. You could also do this on something like Photoshop. But you know, I like to keep things simple because I had my 4th grade teacher would always say, "Kiss, keep it simple, stupid." And they have pre-formatted little things for different social media posts. So advertising and social media for pop-up shops, food trucks, it's a must. You really have to do it. It's a really low cost. You could really target a market inside Facebook with a boost. And it's how I put together our Facebook covers for our Facebook events and on the SPDC website. You could create a menu in here. You could create a resume, a Facebook post, a Twitter post, an email header, and they have prefab designs. So let's see, I want to get to that menu because I know I saw it. You could create a CD cover. You could be the next big thing. There's the menus, labels, and you know, this just makes you look more professional. It classes it up. And you know, for me to create a little Facebook cover like this takes about 10 minutes at most, and it just makes my Facebook page look a little bit more professional. You could upload photos to this. You could upload images to this. You could purchase images because, of course, they're looking to make money somewhere in this program, right? You could choose colors, specific colors. You could choose templates. Like, let's take this gift certificate, for example, which is something most people who sell without a store may want to use. You could see all the cool, beautiful prefab templates in there. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, 1 second. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I beat that. I think that's all I need to say on that one. I'm going to use I have about 15 minutes left, so anybody have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Anybody want to go over anything else? I'm going to bring up the follow-up email that I'm going to send out to Cecilia. And, oh, let me put in the article so I could show you how you do things like this in MailChimp and the like. Oh, it's a document.
It's Reagan, like the president.
Okay. Got somebody chatted over something. Oh, contact information for Susan Reagan. That's a great idea. Let me.
Business and economic research.
Okay, there we go. So the contact information for Susan Reagan is right there. I put a contact information for the Socorro Community Kitchen. Cecilia, do you work with the mixing bowl in Albuquerque? Is that something the STC works with?
I'm not aware of that. The mixing bowl?
Have you all heard about the mixing bowl in Albuquerque? I'll put it up on the screen. It's the South Valley Economic Development Corporation who puts the mixing bowl together. And what the mixing bowl is it's a community commercial kitchen, and they allow you to create your products and your food products in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the waiting list for this particular food product business incubator is about a year. You're going to be waiting about a year to get in there. Socorro has one. Socorro's not that far from Albuquerque, about a beautiful scenic 50-mile drive. could pick up your green chili and stop in Los Lunas and Ballet and spend a lot of money. And they don't have a waiting list. You could get in there pretty quickly.
There's
So,
another question.
oh, okay. Let me open up chat and see what's up. Advertising off social media, should the ad come from the business social media? I'm not sure. I don't really understand that too very much. Maybe.
I think they mean instead of like personal social media, should be advertisement from like a business social media page.
Yes, you should have your business should have its own page. A lot of people set up Facebook pages under dummy accounts, or they set up the business page under a personal account. It doesn't take very much. As long as you have your own personal account, you can make a business page on Pinterest, on Facebook, on Twitter, and yada, yada, yada. But it's more professional if it comes from your business's page. Okay, and then I have census.gov NAICS for you. I have the Census Business Builder link. I have B-Plan Starting Cost Calculator. I have choosing a business entity for you all. Contact information to the New Mexico Environment Department. Etsy Seller Handbook. How to sell online with eBay. Amazon's tutorials. Albuquerque Mixing Bowl contact info. Shopify's Ultimate Guide to Pop-Up Shops. I love this guide. It's really cool. Choosing a business entity. I think I have that twice. It's so good I put it on twice. How to write compelling product descriptions. That's a neat one, because if you're going to start an online marketplace, you really need to have a good description of your product or service, or mostly product. 10 online marketplaces. City of Albuquerque Food Permitting Guide. Wow, Food Truck Permitting Guide. Wow, there's a lot of regulations that people don't think about in there. The article by Tamara E. Holmes, Selling Without a Store. The updated slides that I did today. Basic Steps to Starting a Business, which is available on nmsbdc.org as well. And our Quick Start Guide. So what the Quick Start Guide is it's Valencia County specific information that tells people where to go to register an LLC, where to get your EIN number, where to get your CRS number, and the different costs to register a business in the different municipalities. And as I said before, you may need a business license in the different municipalities, in a food truck, in a pop-up shop, if you're going to sell somewhere in a flea market. What other resources can I help you guys with? We saw the databases. Remember, the database tools are free to those who have access to UNM Libraries login. They're no cost to SPDC clients.
Do they coordinate with SPDCs? PTAC?
So do you coordinate with all local SPDCs?
So our SPDCs are all a little different. I know you at the STC, you have an SPDC advisor there maybe once a week?
Once a month from
What?
the SPDC at CNM.
So that's Dr. Lozano, I believe, Dr. Marvin Lozano?
He's done a seminar with us, but we usually have different people from their office who come once a month.
So, you know, if they're not familiar with the research tools, they know they could reach out to me or somebody else in the network to pull this research. But I'm trying to avoid your question entirely, but in short, no, we don't always coordinate together, and we don't always coordinate with other economic development organizations like SCORE or West. But, you know, you have my contact information now. If you ever need anything, feel free to call me. You know, if I help somebody in Albuquerque and somebody grows, all the better. we just ask that you help us with our funding by filling out one of those client economic impact reports if you do have the milestone.
Well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So,
I'm pretty much done with this. I'm gonna go ahead and send you this follow-up email.
and I'll have everything posted on the nmrainforest.com website.
And I owe you the questions. I need to come up with 10 questions
Yeah.
about this presentation, and I will get those to you. Is there anything you wanted to announce, Cecilia, or anything you need to say?
Our next seminar will be on November 21st here at the local rainforest, but also via Zoom, and that'll be November 21st, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. It'll be a lunch seminar. And then we also have one on December 9th, which will be held at UNM Taos. And that will be at 10 a.m. with Stacy Sacco. So the one in November is on taxes and business startups. And then the one in December will be on networking for your startup and small business. And those, all information for those are also on the nmrainforest.com website. So that's all the announcements I have.
Cool. Well, I'm done for today, Cecilia. If you need anything, please reach out to me.
Okay.
Thank you all for attending, and I'm glad if there's anything you need, reach out to me, and I look forward to seeing you guys at future seminars.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Bye.
That was really good.